That's why you're unmuted, so you can talk.
Clint says to the introvert of the group. All right.
Hey, I was the same way. Now look at me.
Yeah, nothing's changed me yet.
Wacko will change you, or this group will after a while. You
All right.
just takes doing it a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Well, Wacko is clearly not going to do that for me, but what time is it? We'll give everyone one more minute.
Yeah, we've got 21 people so far.
Oh, nice.
So you got my note. We'll start with Hazel first and then do the rest of our stuff. Although you can do a quick welcome and all that.
Yep. I'm trying to. All right, give me 1 minute and I will. Sorry, I look like a drowned rat, but I will put the camera on. All right. Video. Oh, yeah. Great. All right. Well, we can get started. Welcome, everybody, to the new year for... Oh, don't do that. I look like a drowned rat. Good Lord.
Sorry.
To the new year. Thank you for having me as your president. Not that, well, you did have some choice, but anyway, we'll cover things in the newsletter as well as President's Challenge after Meredith's presentation, because I'm very excited about this because I need all the help I can get. So tonight we have Meredith here doing a presentation on refreshing your basic editing skills. I know that all of a sudden all these cool things are showing up in Lightroom, and now I'm like all deep in the weeds all the time, and I'm just this will be a good refresher to just get back to basics. So Hazel, if you would like to take it over, we can get through your presentation and learn all kinds of cool stuff.
Cool. I will go ahead and share my screen and say hi to everybody. Glad to have you be back with you again tonight. I'm going to do just a couple slides first to kind of go over what we're going to talk about, and then we'll get into some actual editing. So actually, all right. So the reason I came up with this program, this is a new one I have for this season, and you guys are the first to see it. And I do a lot of judging, and I find myself making the same comments over and over. And I thought this would be a good kind of like a refresher, things to think about when you think you're done with your image. Take a look again and make sure your horizon is straight. That's one of my biggest pet peeves when I'm judging, because it's such an easy fix. Check your cropping, get rid of, the extra space around everything. Check your color for saturation and vibrance, and I'm going to show you the difference in those two. Check to make sure things are sharp by using texture, clarity, and detail. Check for your contrast and your highlights and shadows. Then we're going to talk about the best ways to apply your changes with non-destructive editing so that you can make further changes if you need to by using smart objects, adjustment layers, and layer masks. We're going to talk a little bit about generative AI and what is allowed in most clubs. And of course, every club has their own rules, but kind of as a generalization from what I've come across in most of the clubs I've taught for, sky replacement is usually allowed and as long as you use your own skies. Generative AI to remove objects is most of the time okay. It's kind of like just using healing and cloning, except it makes it a whole lot easier and faster. Generative expand to add space around your subject. That's one that is per club rules because that does vary. And again, be aware of your club's rules. And if you're competing, like I'm sure Waco does, if they compete in PSA or you're competing in another outside group, for PSA, all parts of the image must be your own photos. And PSA nature, no adding or removing objects unless you can do it by cropping. So you can't do sky replacement. You can't clone out a power line or a fence post or anything like that. If you can't crop it out, then it has to stay in the image. And that's very important. And then finishing touches, if you have a very dark or black background in your image, I suggest adding a stroke around it, because when you're judging it and you're seeing this image is kind of floating on a black background, it makes it very hard for the judge to distinguish where is the actual edge of your photo. Is it a horizontal? Is it a vertical? How much background have you left? It's really hard to tell without a stroke around it. And then check if you need to do any further denoising or sharpening. You can use Topaz AI or other third-party programs. And then get creative, textures, and a collection, etc. And again, that's depending on the category you're entering and the rules for those particular things. So with that, we're going to get started. And I do encourage questions, so please feel free to ask questions as we go along. I'm actually going to turn off my video while I'm teaching, because you're just going to see me looking back and forth between my two monitors. I do have the chat box open if you prefer to type it, but you can feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question at any time. I welcome questions. All right, so let's get started. So this first image, and when I'm setting up these programs and finding images of my own to work on, an image like this, I would definitely never enter it in a competition. However, it was one I thought illustrated a lot of the things I wanted to show you really well. So that's why I chose this one. So in this one, we're going to use, we're going to do adjustments. We're going to use smart objects. We're going to crop it, straighten it, sky replacement, and do some cloning and removing. So we're going to start, this is an older image of mine, so it was shot in JPEG. So I'm going to duplicate my background first, and I always do that to kind of protect that background layer. And I use the keyboard shortcut Control-J, Command-J if you're on a Mac. And I want to convert this layer to a smart object. Now, I have to admit, I have not used smart objects a lot over the years, although I have been doing it a lot more in the last probably 6 months or so, especially since the Nick collection also can do smart objects. And and it's kind of finally making sense to me after all these years. So to convert a layer to a smart object, you're just going to right click on the layer and you're going to search for convert to smart object. So what a smart object lets us do is make changes non-destructively. So if this was not a smart object and I went in, and we're going to start with the camera raw filter. So we're going to go to filter, camera raw. If I were to do this when it was not a smart object, once I closed this panel, I would not be able to make further changes to what I've already done. I would have to kind of add another filter and do other things. So this just lets you go back easily to make changes. Now, I'm sure lots of you use Lightroom, which is perfectly fine. I'm just showing you how to do things in Photoshop, but using Lightroom and the camera raw filter are pretty much the same thing. So you're going to get the same kind of ideas from this. So first we're going to start under light, and we're going to do all of our exposure adjustments. So I'm going to brighten this just a little bit. Not that much. Out there. I'm going to add some contrast, and every image out of the camera needs contrast. Anybody who can tell you that they're going to shoot everything perfectly in the camera and never make an adjustment is lying, because I have yet to come across an image like that. I'm going to take my highlights down because I want to tone down that white in here, and you can see we brought back some more detail in those boards. And I'm going to bring the shadows actually down. Usually you want to open the shadows, but in this case, I'm bringing them down just a little bit. And now I want to make my whites nice and white, so I'm going to go up a little bit on that. And then the blacks, I want to make a little bit blacker. They were kind of flat looking in this image. So we're going to do a minus. And next we're going to go into color. So here's where we have the opportunity to add saturation and vibrance to our image. What is the difference? Not everybody knows that, and I didn't years ago either. So saturation is going to saturate your image evenly, and it doesn't have any regard as to what is already saturated or not. So if I take this up, you just see it's saturating everything equally, okay? Vibrance is kind of like a smarter filter. It's if it knows something is already really saturated, it's going to add less saturation to it. So if you really push it, of course, it's going to all get saturated. But if I move it a little bit, and I only want to do a little bit on this particular image. And then I'm doing just a little bit of saturation. So sometimes I use both. Sometimes I just use the vibrance. Kind of depends on the image itself. And if you hover over these things, you will actually get that little pop-up. And it will tell you here what it's doing. So this is controlling the saturation of all the colors equally. And then the vibrance, it's going to change the saturation, but without giving it those weird kind of color casts. So it pops the colors a little bit without overdoing it as much. So we're going to go into effects, and this is where we can do some sort of sharpening. So I like to use some texture and clarity, and that really makes the details in your image pop. Let me zoom in a little and see if you can kind of see how this is going to react. So I'm going to add some texture. And then I'm going to add some clarity. Okay. And then I also, on this particular one, did a little bit of dehaze, just a couple of points. And I don't always do that. This is great if you do kind of have like that hazy overcast look. What it's actually doing is adding more contrast to the image. And then we're going to come down to detail, where we can actually do some more sharpening. Sometimes I don't even need the sharpening after using the detail and clarity. We can also do some noise reduction. And for most photos, this is going to be sufficient. As I mentioned in the slides, if you really have a very noisy image, maybe it's a cell phone shot or something, then I would use like Topaz AI to get rid of that. Or the Nik products, or there's several others out there. And then under optics, let me bring this back a little bit. I took the distortion down a little, and what this is going to, it's kind of correcting for like the lenses. If this were a raw file, I would have another setting in here that would actually find the lens that I use, but with a JPEG, it doesn't do that. So I'm kind of manually fixing that. All right. And we're going to, oops, we don't need that pop-up. We're going to say, okay. So now you can see that since I've accepted that, we have a mask here, which we'll get into masking in a bit. But you can see here's my camera raw filter. So if I decided I needed to tweak something a little bit more, we can just double click that, and actually not there. Let's click on there, and it will open it back up, and all of our settings are there. So then you can readjust anything that you maybe overdid it or something, or need to do more of something. Okay, and the one thing I didn't do first that I should have is straighten this image. So I think it might be fairly straight, and sometimes it's an optical illusion, being like this is the curve of this pond that it's on. But I'm going to go ahead and select my crop tool, and you can either use the straighten tool, or I usually, if you put your cursor outside the corner and get that curved arrow, once you click, you'll get the grid, and then I'll just drag to where it looks straight to me. And that looks better. And then maybe I'm going to crop this just a little bit. I'm going to crop some of this right. All the empty trees over there. Maybe a smidge from the top. And a little bit over here. Okay. So now I'm going to do a sky replacement. So what I want to do is come over here to Edit, Sky Replacement. And all you do is click this little drop-down area, and that will take you into all of the skies you have in your library. These are mostly my own, some from my friend Gavin. And I'm going to use my from Puffy Clouds 2. I'm going to use this one. And because it's very high in the, very little bit of the sky is showing, I'm going to drag this down because that's looking, putting the horizon, the bottom of the sky at the horizon. And I really want to get more of these clouds from up top. And I'm looking at my finished image to kind of see where I want to go. I just want to bring in some clouds, some blue sky there. So it just wasn't that kind of grayish cast that it had. And then I'm going to make a few changes to this. The foreground lighting, I brought down to 0 because I didn't need to adjust that. And then the sky brightness, I want to bring down a little bit. And I always do output to new layers, and that way I get the mask that the sky is, that Photoshop has created and all, in case I need to adjust anything. So when I say okay, that's going to show me the sky replacement. It puts everything in this little group, and there's my sky and all of the masking. So you can hit that little arrow to collapse that group so it doesn't take up so much room here. So now I want to clone out this telephone pole. And normally when you're doing cloning, you could do it on your layer. But now that I've made this a smart object, you cannot clone on a smart object. And the better way to do it anyway, even if you weren't on a smart object, is we're going to add a blank layer above our image. And you can do cloning and healing on this blank layer. So again, it's non-destructive and it's easy to fix if you mess something up. So I'm going to go to my clone tool, and you just need to make sure that all layers is selected here so that it can see that layer below it. And then I'm going to zoom in, make my brush a little smaller. And I'm just going to sample. And I like to sample and resample so you don't get exact patterns going in your images. It's a little easier when it's trees like this, but still you don't really want to get like this duplicate patterns. So I usually try and do something like that. And then let me flip my page. And I want to get rid of these power lines as well. So we have fairly new in Photoshop is the new remove tool, which comes up just below the healing brush. Kind of looks like it, except it has little stars there. And when you click on there, if you go up to find distractions and click that, it has one for wires and cables. And this does a really good job with removing power lines, even when they're in front of a subject and not just in front of the sky. And there we go. The power lines are gone. So that cleared that up. So the last thing I decided to do with this is I want to go back into Camera Raw. And I want to go into curves, which I don't always use a lot. And I just want to make some adjustments to my light. So I'm going to bring the lights down a little bit more. And the darks up just a little bit. And the shadows back up a little. And say, okay. And so we went from, that's our original, to that. And I said, it's not, you know, something I want to hang on the wall or enter in a competition, but you can see how just some minor tweaks and changes have really improved this image. And again, if you've done, you know, your basic editing, either in Lightroom or in Camera Raw, take a look at all those things again. When you think you're done, look at it, you know, walk away from it and come back to it, you know, in a few hours or tomorrow and take a look at things and go, oh yeah, I missed that. I missed that there was power lines there, or I missed that telephone pole, or, you know, brightening or things like that.
Hazel, I do have a question on your curves.
Uh-huh.
I've never used curves. Why do you choose to do that? Was that just because you're looking at the final image? Why do you choose to use curves versus going back to the main and doing like the light, you know,
That's
shadows?
a good question, because I don't use curves all that often, and I was just looking at this particular image. I thought if I tried adjusting the brightness, I still wasn't getting the effect I wanted. I did play with that a bit, you know, going back into light and bringing down, you know, my highlights were all the way down already. So I was like, well, how else can I kind of tone that down a little bit? So that's why I went into the curves and brought the lights down that way. So you can see it's kind of changed, you know, your lights are like this area. So it's kind of brought that line down. And then we opened up the darker areas. You can drag in here as well and, you know, move things this way. I just happened to, I may have even done that, but then figured out where I ended up and what I liked. So I wrote down the numbers in my notes so I could replicate it again. So
Excellent.
yeah,
Thank you.
I don't often use curves myself. Some people use it all the time. I rarely do, but in this image, because I wanted to tone down those bright areas, I didn't have the option of bringing the highlights down anymore. Good question.
Is probably a naive beginner question, but
that's okay. That's why we're here.
when you did all the adjustments, like you on the sky and removing the one post, that doesn't show up in the reflection. So if you're working with a reflection, would there be a way to make an adjustment so that it looks like an actual reflection of the changes you've made?
Yes, and that's a good point, because the sky doesn't reflect here. So, and I didn't even pay attention to that. So that was my bad. What I really should have done to replace the sky in this case, I also used Luminar, and their sky replacement will actually match the reflection accurately. Not just from what you see here, but like what the sky would have looked like actually reflected. It will do that. So I should have done my reflection there. Thank you. I didn't even notice that. See, you always need to go back and look again. As far as the pole, if that were in my reflection, I would have also cloned it out from the reflection so that it matched, you know, the top if it were showing. See, I learn something new every day too. Okay. So if you have a reflection like this and you don't use a program that can do that, like Luminar, then I probably wouldn't change this guy, because then it is noticeable that it's different. Anybody else before we move on? Okay. I'm not going to save this. So the key too, if you don't already work, you know, with layers regularly, again, we have things on layers because we can go back and change them. So when you save your file, you also want to save it so that you still have these layers. And I I always got in the habit years ago of doing save as. I never save, so you never accidentally save over your original. I like to save as a TIFF file. You can also save it as a PSD Photoshop file. And the reason I started using TIFFs years ago is I used to use Topaz products a lot. And at one point, when they were newer, Topaz could not read a Photoshop file because the Photoshop is a proprietary format. Just like Photoshop can't read if I saved in a Topaz Studio file. So a TIFF is a more universal file and every program can read it. Nowadays, is not as big a deal with the PSDs. Most programs can read them, but I just got in that habit, so I prefer a TIFF file. But you always want to save one of those formats so that you're saving your layers. And then if you want to, post it on social media or you're entering in a competition, then you would save your, resize it and save your JPEG version. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and close that one. Close that. All right. So next up, this is a cell phone image that I took last summer when we were out scouting for some of our workshops. We're going to start with Smart Object Exam. I'm going to show you some selection tools, and then we'll use an adjustment layers and clipping masks. So we're going to do a few things to this one. So again, I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to convert this to a Smart Object. So let's go into our camera raw. And when you select the filter from here, when you see it up top, if you were to select it from here, it's going to apply all of the settings that you last applied. So this is like just the last thing that you used. So you don't, unless you're doing another image that's pretty much the same as your original, you always want to select from down here. Okay, so start with light. We're going to bring this up just a smidge. Some contrast. And bring the highlights down some. Bring my shadows up. Bring the whites up. And the blacks down. Color. On this one, I only used vibrance. I did not use any saturation. And then effects. Some texture. And some clarity. And on this one, another tool that I don't often use is under Color Mixer. Sometimes you want to adjust either the saturation or the brightness of a color, which would be your luminance, individually instead of an overall adjustment. So this is where you would come to do that. So in here, I wanted to adjust the sky some and darken that down a little bit. So I brought down both the aqua and the blue because that's what makes up that area. And then to our detail, we're gonna add some sharpening. Come on. And some noise reduction. This is a little more noisy because it is a cell phone shot. And some colored noise. Okay, so now you notice that this barn had a little bit of a blue tone, and the adjustment that I made to the sky kind of accented that. So first we're going to accept this. So now I want to make a selection of this barn, and I want to adjust my colors some more selectively up there. So in this case, instead of the regular selection tool, I'm going to switch to the polygonal lasso tool. And what this lets you do is draw straight lines really easily. So I'm going to start at the corner here, and I'm just clicking at each point where I want to anchor before I change direction. I'm kind of just doing this top part of the barn because that's where that bluish tone is. And then kind of double click when you get to the end. So we have our marching ants around that area. And now I want to add a hue and saturation adjustment layer. So before we had the camera raw filter to use, we're going way back. I still in my basic Photoshop classes teach people how to do adjustments with all of the adjustment layers, but sometimes we need them, like in this case, just to do a specific task. So any of these will automatically make its own layer. And because I had a selection when I clicked that adjustment layer, let's close that for a second, you can see that it automatically masked off the areas I don't want to apply this change. So it's a quick way to apply a mask without having to go in and brush it in. So everything is masked. The black, it's black hides, white reveals. So these adjustments are only going to be in that white area. Okay, so I'm going to reopen this, and I'm going to adjust some of my colors, those blue colors again. And I'm going to bring the aqua down here, and then the blue, I'm going to bring way down to there. Because it was really a grayish barn. It wasn't blue, but just the way the lighting was that day. It was midday when we happened to stumble upon this location, and the people were there and let us come up and photograph the property. And so I really wanted that to be, you know, more of what I saw that day. So you can see that this adjustment now is only applied just to that area of the barn. So now I'm going to kind of do the same thing. I'm going to do another hue and saturation adjustment to the sky. So we're going to select our sky. So for this case, I'm going to use a quick selection tool. And sometimes it's a matter of trying the tool and see what works the best for what you need to do. So that one pretty easily selected my sky, and we can add this little piece over there. And I'm going to do the same thing, add another hue and saturation layer, and now only the sky is going to be affected. And on here, I wanted to change on blue. I'm actually going to change the hue just a tad. Just change the tone of the blue a little bit. I'm going to bring the saturation now up on the sky. And the lightness, I want to darken this down just a little bit. And that's all I did to that one. And I want to now adjust this really bright green grass that's over here. It's just a little too bright, even though it, it's just because of the sun. So I'm going to do the same thing with a adjustment layer. Now I'm going to show you another way that you can make an adjustment affect one area. Masking is probably the quickest, but now that I have this selected, if I click on my original layer so it can see those pixels, I can do like when we first open our image, we did a Control J to duplicate it, or Command J, and that will duplicate the whole layer. If we do that when we have a selection, if I do my Control J now, it's just going to put that selection on a separate layer. So then I can add a hue and saturation adjustment layer, and I can clip that to this. So it's kind of doing the same thing as applying the mask. So if you hold down your Alt or Option key and put your cursor between the layers till you get that little box with the arrow and click once, that has moved over. Now this little arrow is telling me that this layer is clipped to this layer. So it's only going to affect this layer. So it's doing the same basic thing, but without using a mask. So now when we make our change, let's move this over so you can, come on, move over, so you can see it happen. I'm going to go to the yellows and change the hue a little bit and bring the saturation of the yellow way down and the lightness. Because even though it's green, it's the yellow that was really giving it that really bright color. So that's what we're going to change for there. And you can see how it toned that down quite a bit. And then so the other things I noticed, let's say the chimney. So behind this barn was another building, and you can see the chimney over here from it and this little exhaust vent. Those are actually from the house behind the barn. So if you wanted to get rid of those, we could do that. So again, we're gonna, above this, just add a blank layer. And we can zoom in so you can see those. And we're just gonna do a little bit of healing. Probably cloning might be better. So let's see how this works. So we're gonna select here and might have been better with healing, but sometimes, you know, it depends on what you're doing. I usually do try healing first, and then if that doesn't work, go with cloning. That's not a great job, but you get the idea. And then same thing over here. I'd probably go this way. And then kind of go across with this mountain here. That looks pretty good. Those kind of just bothered me there. And there you have it. Any questions on that one?
I do have a question for you.
Sure.
How come you don't do much of this in Lightroom and then you would save all these layers?
Well, like I said, you can do a lot of this in Lightroom, but a lot of people work in Photoshop. I tend to work more in Photoshop these days than Lightroom. I'm not sure. Somewhere along the way, I kind of get away from doing as much in Lightroom. I think because I do a lot of, you know, textures and creative stuff that I just found it easier to do most everything in Photoshop. But yes, you absolutely can do a lot of this in Lightroom, and that's perfectly fine. So this is showing you not only techniques, but kind of the things to look for as you're editing is really more what we're trying to do today.
Well, it makes sense. Thank you.
Sure. There's always more than one way to do all of this stuff, even in Photoshop, as you can see by, you know, doing, you know, selective editing with the layer mask or by clipping a layer. You know, it's just personal preference, a lot of it, and you know how your own workflow goes. So as long as it gets you to the end result, there's really no right or wrong. It's what works for you. Anybody else? Alrighty. Close that one. I'm not saving them because I already have them saved. So let's go on to this one. All right. So again, this is kind of a kind of an image, but we're going to try to do some improvements to this. It's a little soft even, so we're going to see what we can do to bring out some detail as well. Okay, so first, let's do copy our layer, make this a smart object, go to our camera raw filter. So what I know I'm going to do in this image is I want to make the flower better and sharper and a little brighter. The background I'm going to want to tone down a little bit. So as I'm making this first set of adjustments, I'm focused on the flower because then I know I'm going to do different adjustments to the background. Okay. So let's go to our camera raw. And sometimes it's a matter of just kind of thinking, you know, when you start on an image, okay, even when I first started on this one, it's like, all right, what do I want to do with this? What is my goal? And, you know, I wanted to make the flower look better, but then as I'm doing that, I'm going, okay, well, this background is very distracting. So we're going to want to tone that down. So that's when I started thinking about doing this kind of in a two-step process. So we're going to brighten this up just a little bit, add some contrast, bring down our highlights just a tad. Shadows we're not going to change. Whites, we're going to brighten that up. And blacks, no change. Color, some vibrance. We're actually going to bring this down a little bit and the saturation down a little bit. It was pretty bright. Effects, we're going to add some texture and some clarity. And I'm going to push this more than usual because it was very soft. So you can see with those two how much detail that's brought out. Let's turn that off for a second. So that's the before and that's the after. So we're starting to really bring out the detail in those petals. And then we're going to go to detail. Again, this isn't a perfect image. Would I put it in competition? Probably not. But it's more about giving you the examples of what to look for. Okay. So let's say okay there. So that is our flower. So now I want to duplicate this layer. I'm actually going to do that one. I'm going to go back to my background layer and I'm going to duplicate this because I want to add another layer without any of those changes to the background. So we're going to do a Control J and I'm going to move this above that layer. So basically you're seeing the original image again. And I'm going to use the quick selection tool and select my flower. And I also wanted to keep, because this is kind of in the foreground and pretty sharp, I want to select that as well. And excuse me, and now we're going to add a layer mask to this. So what this actually did was invert what I wanted. So I wanted to mask off the flower because I want to make adjustments to the background. So I'm just going to do a Control I in the mask and now it's reversed it for me. So by masking out the flower from this layer, we're seeing the flower that we just made all those changes on. And now our background is the original background. And now we can make some adjustments to this one. So let's make this a smart object. Over here. And you can see it combined that mask right into there for me. And now we're going to do our camera raw. And we're only adjusting our background. So we're going to go to light. I'm going to bring the exposure down this time. Bring the shadows way down. And the blacks down. Color. I did add just a little bit of vibrance to it. even though it's going to be darker, I still wanted it to look good. And then in this case, for the detail, I'm going to, under effects, sorry, I'm going to bring the clarity down so it kind of blurs the background a little bit more. I don't want to make it sharper. I want to make it less sharp. And say, okay. So now you can see without that, that was our original background. And now we've toned that down. And this layer has given us all of our changes to the flower. So now I want to crop this. I want to keep that one in the background. I don't want to chop into that. And I'm going to bring this over to just to the right of that bud in the upper right. Now, the one thing I didn't like is this leaf down here. So I'm going to use generative AI to get rid of it. You could clone, there's a couple things you could do here. So on the background layer, I'm going to add a blank layer to show you this. One of the things before we had generative AI that I used to do when things are near an edge like this, if you use the smudge tool, make sure sample all layers is checked, and just kind of drag towards your edge. When you've got a really dark background like this, it works really well, and it gets rid of something like that. You could even, if you wanted to get rid of that bright spot, just kind of drag it that way. It's a really quick and easy way to get rid of things. And it actually, in this case, worked really well. But the other option is generative AI to get rid of that. So we're going to go to this layer. I just hid this layer for a moment. We're going to use just the lasso tool and circle the area we want to get rid of. You don't want to go too close. You want to give it an idea of what you want to replace it with. So you want to leave some of the background around it. Do generative fill. And I'm not going to type a prompt, just say generate. And it'll give you 3 options. And they probably should all be pretty good. Yeah, that one probably blends the best. So basically, you know, if your club says absolutely no generative AI, then using the smudge tool in this case is another way around that. I think this probably is just a little bit smoother looking than that one. But definitely there's, you know, always more than one way to do these things. So then this is one of those cases where if I were putting this into a competition, the background is very dark. It's not black, but it's really close and very dark on the edges. So this is one that would work well with a stroke around the edge. Let's just get rid of that layer because we don't need it. So I want to select the outside. So if I do a Control A for it's select all, it's going to give me that dotted line around the outside. And again, we could do this on a blank layer. And then go to Edit, Stroke. Where is it? Here. And then depending on the size, usually I will do this after I've sized it down for competition. So if you're dealing with like, you know, 1050 by 1400 or something very small, you don't need more than 2 pixels. In this case, I think this is much larger. So let's just do 10 so you can see what it looks like. We can change it. And usually I'll use white or a light gray, depending on the image. You can choose a color if you wanted to like maybe have a pinkish tone to it. You can just put your cursor over there. Sometimes that works. Sometimes it overpowers things. So you might want to go really, really pale. And let's say, okay, Control D to deselect. And there you have it. Again, that's probably a little too heavy. I would probably do less even. So I'm going to undo it, edit, stroke. Let's do 5. That's better. You want something just enough. So, and my background is kind of the gray tone. It's not solid black, but if this were, usually when it's being projected in a competition, the background is black. And this being next to black would be very hard to see some of these edges. And you really want the judges to be able to see how you cropped your image. Any questions? Oh, and also this would not go into a nature category because that's a cultivated flower. It's a rose. So that would not go in a nature category. Any questions? Okay, grab a quick sip of water.
Quiet group.
You never know. Some nights really talkative, but we've had some
Yeah.
good questions, so that's okay. All right. So another one, just another quick way to tone down a background. And I kind of made this one a little more dramatic just by using the Nik collection. If you have Nik, if you don't have the latest version, I highly recommend it. I did a webinar, one of my webinars on it a couple months ago, just after they released it. And it's just, they keep improving it. Since DxO purchased it, they just keep improving it more and more and more, and I really love it. All right, so this one I've done kind of my basic editing on, but now it's like, well, it's okay. It's not a, I like the image, but I think it could be a lot more. The one thing I would do is use the healing brush on some of these spots, you know, on the leaves and on the flower, kind of clean it up a little bit. You always want things to look as good as they can. Before I get into any of my creative programs or textures or anything, I always make sure the image is as finished as I can get it. So I would go in and then I would also get rid of this bright spot over here. And sometimes you have to go over it more than once. And I'm also doing this very quick, but kind of like that. And these you could kind of tweak even later on if needed. All right. So now I'm going to use my Nik collection. And now rather than having the panel that would dock on the bottom, we have this little icon that I've put on my toolbar. And this brings up the new panel. And I'm going to go into color effects. Oh, and they have another update. Okay, I just updated it a couple weeks ago. And these are like incremental, you know, little tweaks that they do it once they release the main upgrade for the year. So I'm going to go into the low key filter. And all I adjusted here was the highlights to there. So what this did was really tone down that background really nicely. And then to give it a little more something, I really love using the Glamour Glow filter. So I'm going to hit the plus sign to add this filter. I don't want to replace the one that I already have. And we're going to move the glow up. Shadows I took to 0. Highlights are back just a tad. And left the opacity at 100%. So if I thought the glow was too much, I could always bring back the effect, but I really liked that particular effect here. So then one of the things they've added now in this latest version of Nik, if you haven't used it yet, is not only can we just apply the effect, but we can apply it as a smart object. And we can apply it to the active layer or make it a new layer. Or if I did masking, we could save it as a new layer with the mask. So we can do a smart object and say apply. And again, by having it be a smart object, I can click this and go back into Nik, which before they added the smart object feature, which they did in the version that came out last year, you cannot do that. One of the biggest changes with this version was if I had done a mask in Photoshop and masked an area, I could actually utilize that mask in Nick as well. If you want to see how that works, like I said, I did one of my own webinars. They're on my YouTube channel. If you go to my website, and I'll talk about that at the end, I'll show you the link and all, but you can get to it through my website as well. But I go into all the new stuff in here. All right, so there you have it. And this is another one, and I would probably still come back in now, and I'm going to add a layer because it's a smart object and heal that one little line there. I don't like that. I don't mind that. And you could also, you know, if you wanted to get rid of like that smudge, you could either heal it or do generative AI. And this is one, if I were entering, I would definitely put a stroke on this one as well, because it's pretty close to black in a lot of areas. Even if it weren't all black, even where like the dark green is, it's very dark. So I would definitely put a 2-pixel stroke. But we went from that to something I think it looks a whole lot better. Any questions on that one?
In this particular program, could you bring back that yellow part in the middle of the white flower? So bring that
in
back
here?
to yes. How would you
let's see,
that
what
up?
does our original look like? Oops, holding the wrong key. Yeah, actually, it did darken that down. So what I would probably do is just add it on this layer mask. I would, that's a great question. See, things that you don't even notice on your own work sometimes. I'm just going to grab a round brush, and it's all the way on hard. I want it to be a little bit softer, probably not completely soft. So I'm going to bring down the softness of the brush, and I could brush back. I've got my foreground color is black, opacity is 100, and we could just mask away that effect from that area. And I'll show you another trick as soon as I finish this. Obviously, I would be a little more precise with my masking, but it definitely brings that back. If I thought that maybe I don't want it to be that yellow, you can double click in your layer mask, and that will open a properties panel, and you have a density filter. So I could lower that a little bit, and it's hard to see on this tiny little area, but it would actually make your mask more gray because you're letting, let's go down farther. You can see how it's grayer because it's letting more of that layer back through. Does that make sense? So we could, you know, adjust that to be, you don't want it to be too bright because then it would kind of look fake, but you definitely could bring back some more of that color. Yeah. Definitely. So again, that was our original, and that's with some adjustments. Alrighty. Okay. So let's go ahead and close that one. So what are we going to do next? We're going to do this steam train. And this is a raw filter, not a filter, a file. So it's going to open right into Camera Raw. Okay. So we're going to go into our light, our exposure up, our contrast, highlights down, shadows up, whites, and blacks. Color, we're going to add some vibrance, effects, texture, and clarity. And then when we come under detail now, because it's a raw file, we have some other options in here. So I'm just going to click on denoise. and it's going to calculate what this image needs. Okay, and then we can add a little bit of sharpening. And then if I come down under optics, and I say use the profile corrections, and sometimes it will find it right away. If I just click on Canon, there you go. It found my lens and it did that optical correction for me. And next to open, instead of just saying open, I'm going to hit this arrow and open as an object, which will open it as a smart object. So now you can see that little symbol tells me it's a smart object. So now I want to straighten this just a hair. To me, it looks like and it's probably a lot of it just kind of an optical illusion that the train is kind of going uphill a little bit. So I'm going to open my crop tool. And we're going to straighten this just a teeny bit. And then I want to crop this some. Out there. And then bring this side in to about there. Okay. Then after I had processed this the first time, I was like, I really wish I could see the steam at the very top here. So we're going to use some generative expand to do that. So the way we do that is with our crop tool activated. I'm just going to pull up where I want to add some space. I'm going to go up a little bit more. And then say generative expand and generate. And it's going to create some sky for us. And let's see what we got. I like that one. Yeah, I like that one better because it doesn't go off the edge of the page. So we're going to go with that one. So now I want to actually change the sky in this image because obviously that white sky is real. It was a very cloudy day. This was in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So I don't want to flatten this image because I want to keep my smart object. So what I like to do instead of flattening things, and I use this command a lot, is I want to create a merged layer above this because I want to combine these two layers so it sees the sky as one unit. And the way we do that, it's several keystrokes. On a PC, it's Control, Alt, Shift, and the letter E. On a Mac, it would be Command, Option, Shift, E. And I always rename this merged so I remember what the heck I did there. And now we'll do our sky replacement. And go in here and it just remembers whatever you used last, which I'm not going to use this time. This time I'm going to use stormy skies. I'm going to use this one. Click over here and I want to flip this sky horizontally because I wanted that cloud away from there. And I'm also going to make the scale of this. Right now it's matching the sky to the width of this image. I'm going to make it bigger so I can move. I have room to move the clouds. So I want to move these below the horizon and then move this one off of that. Okay. And sky adjustments. I'm going to brighten this just a little bit. And change the temperature a little. And then we'll say, okay. What happened? It unchecked. Get over there. Okay. And that's interesting, because this is where it didn't pick up my steam. Well, that's weird. Let's get rid of that layer for a second. I did something weird. Let's delete this layer. Let's just take it to the trash. All right. So that's where we are. Let's duplicate that just for the heck of it. That's odd. Edit. That's really weird. It's like losing my steam. Huh.
Never works when you do it for real in
I
front of
know.
people.
I haven't had that happen before. That's a first for that. That's really
It's removing
interesting.
clouds from your original sky.
Yeah, because here was our original. And then we added that. And I just merged them into one layer. But it's like adding more space around it.
Yeah, for some reason it's not
See,
picking
it's
up
like completely moving like the whole.
I noticed that a blend mode there was in multiply.
Oh, maybe
Would
that's
anything change if you
well,
were to?
Yeah, I think with the sky it generally is. Okay, now I'm going to open my finished one because now I like how did I do that before? It worked when I did it. See, it worked fine on this one. There's the sky. There was my engine. I had this. I made my merged layer. And then I added my sky. That's really odd. I'm going to have to play with that now tomorrow and figure why did it do that? I've never seen that ever do that on an image. And I often, will add things, but well,
Can you
alrighty.
click on that layer 2? Will it show you what the settings were for it?
This is just another merged layer.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, we can open up the sky. So let's see.
But what's strange is your mask is showing that extra bit of cloud.
Yeah, in here. But in the other one,
the other one it didn't.
Huh. Always got to be something weird in Photoshop, right? So this is, this was just a merged layer. And then I'm going to add a couple of textures on it. So we're going to show you how to blend a layer. Actually, before I did that, I did camera raw on here, I think, a little bit. Let's see.
Now I noticed that the corners are real jagged, top and
That's
left.
just the crop tool. If I get off the crop tool, that'll go away.
Okay. Thank you.
That was just the corners of the crop tool. But thank you. Let's go into our camera. I'll work with this version. That's why I always keep my finished ones on my other screen along with my originals, because you never know. All right.
You also lost the steam from the whistle.
In here, or
it
broke it up a little bit. Let's go back.
Go back to your original. Behind the smokestack.
Yeah, there was a little bit. That's sometimes sky replacement will do that, because it's not, when you do a sky replacement, it's not always actually replacing a sky. It's usually adding it over whatever was there. So in this case, it was pretty white. Even though it's masking it, it's still kind of blending it sometimes with part of what was there. So that's probably why, yeah, that disappeared. So we could try going into the layer mask. Let's see if we can mask the sky a little bit there. I don't know if I could do it very accurately though. Yeah, it's not letting me. Oh, because I have this other layer on top, probably. There it is. Yeah, if I could mask that better. I didn't do a very good job there. We could actually, not with white. We want to paint with black. You could carefully bring that back. And then, yeah. Once I put textures on it, though, we probably wouldn't see that anyway. So, but we'll leave that there. So yeah, so we can bring that back. That's why I do like having the masks in case you do need to adjust anything. All right. So probably it will be gone. Well, let's get rid of that one and we'll make a new merge layer. Control Alt Shift E. Okay. And now I'm not going to make a smart object. I'm just going to add a couple of corrections here. I wanted to bring the shadows up some more. And bring the whites up to bring the steam out a little bit more in the clouds. And the vibrance. Okay. We'll say okay. So now I'm going to add just one texture to kind of just give it a light texture, but kind of give it a little bit of a border. So I'm dragging, I like to drag from my other screen because I work with 2 monitors. If you're not working with 2 monitors and you want to add in a texture or another object, if you go to File, Place Embedded is the easiest way, and then go to, let me go to my seminar. And bring in our texture. And this image is really large, which is why this didn't match any of the size. And then I'm going to change the blending mode to multiply and bring back the opacity about there. And then I kind of want it more at the edges and I don't want as much of the texture in the center. So I'm going to add a layer mask. Grab my brush. I want it to be a very soft brush now. And we're going to flip that to black. And we're going to make the brush really big. And I'm going to mask it all off of the train. And a little bit off of the steam here. So we can stands out a little bit more. I'm just masking away the texture. I don't like that part. And then I just want to take a little bit off. So I'm going to lower the opacity of my brush so I'm not brushing all of it texture off. And I also want to take some off of the cloud just so that's a little bit brighter. And a little bit off of kind of like the top edge of the grass here. That's too much. Let's bring this down some more. Just to make that kind of stand out a little bit. And off of the tracks. Just a little bit. And off the tree. So you can see the different layers of colors of gray where I've, it's lighter gray is where I had my brush at a lower opacity. And we just masked off a little bit. Again, if you don't like it that heavy, we could even bring the opacity back a little bit more. There you have it. Any questions? All right. I'm going to do one more for you. And I'm gonna have to play with that and figure out why that did that. I'm actually just leave that open so I can come back to it tomorrow. Figure out what the heck happened there. All right. So this one, I pre-done a bunch of AI steps on here. So this was my original, and it was cropped, cutting off that petal there. So I did this in a bunch of steps, and I wanted to get rid of that and little leaf here and different things. So first I did generative expand and got a full petal up there. Then I did a merged layer, so it saw all that together. And then I want to get rid of this down here. So I did, these are all generative AI. A little bit to get rid of just these little pink parts that were from the flower that was below it. And then I decided to get rid of that altogether. First, I thought I was going to leave that, and then I went, not really. So we got rid of that other bud altogether, a merged layer, and then I did my camera raw filter. So you can see I brightened it just to get the highlights a little bit more. But I liked, the highlights and lowlights. So this was another one I used some Nick collection on to just do something creative with it, which is kind of my thing. I know most of you have seen me a few times, working with textures and software is my kind of thing. So we're going to go back into our color effects. And I really, again, this is one of those images, it's like, I liked it, but it's like, it's okay. So that's when I start playing with things. And first we're going to go into classical soft focus. And I took the strength all the way to 100%. The highlights to about there. But then, it's bright, but I figure I'm going to play with it and see what else we can do here. And then I do my glamour glow. So hit the plus sign and add that. Add some glow. Shadows are fine. Bring the highlights over here. And yep, that's right. And then I wanted it to be softer. So then I tried the fog filter, which isn't one you would think about in a situation like this, and there are different styles in here, and I went with that one. I changed the intensity to like here. Highlights all the way, and brought back the opacity just a little. Now that's too bright a little, so I'm going to come back up to the soft focus one, and let's bring those highlights back. That doesn't really change it a lot. So yeah, we need that there. So next I'm going to go to, so the other thing they started letting us be able to do in Nick with last year's version, which was version 7, is you can switch between the different modules without having to apply it and then relaunch the other one. Basically, it's doing it for you. So I'm going to, first I want to change this to a smart object before I do this. I'm going to switch to analog effects. So it's basically sending it back to Photoshop, and then it's going to reopen the other program for you. And I went into, let's see. Nope, I don't have it favorited. Oh my God, forecast, yep. Autochrome. And again, I just like to play with things and kind of see what I can come up with. So in here, I changed the light leak to this one. And I changed the frame to white to this one. And then now I'm going to apply. And then what I found happens, and it's kind of weird that it does this. When you use the smart filter with the new masking that it has, it sometimes it like doesn't show you everything that it's done. Like this is, there we go. It's like you have to turn that layer off because it's part of the smart filter. It's very confusing at first. And at first I'm like, well, why didn't all my, selections come over? But it's like, you don't really need this layer because it made it part of the smart filter. So this layer you can actually delete. It's takes a little getting used to. If you don't do it as a smart filter, that's not an issue. Then the other thing I did was I'm going to add a blank layer because I want to, this particular effect had like this writing over here that I didn't really like. So I'm just going to use my healing brush and kind of get rid of that. And there you have it. And that looks different a little. I must have, let me open my other one. I think it's a little different than what I ended up with before. Yeah, that one's a little bit softer. But I thought that was a much better version than just that. So don't be afraid to be creative with your images as well as, perfecting all those little things. Any questions on this one? Okay, I'm gonna open up one other one. I'm just gonna show you the finished one and kind of show you what you can do with some of the with the AI cloning. It worked out really well on this particular image. So this is where I ended up. And this one I just healed a couple little spots there. And I was like, if I had to heal all of this or replace this somehow, that's going to be really, really hard. And I wanted to get rid of that pier. So again, in steps, first we got rid of this little stuff over here. Then we're going to get rid of that pier. Then I did a merged layer. And then we got rid of all that stuff at the top. And this is all, and then I just, to clean it up a little, I used a healing brush afterwards. But it's like so much easier with the generative AI. Yes, I could do it with, healing and cloning, but it would probably not come out as nice and take me a whole lot longer. So just something to keep in mind. Again, make sure you can do that in your competition images, but definitely on your own images, you can, do whatever you like. Any other final questions?
So that last flower was so cool.
Thank you. I like that one myself.
And I thought I was going to leave excited because I learned how to put a border around my picture.
There you go.
But I have the
Mix.
Yeah, but I'm still on version 4. They keep telling me to upgrade.
Oh yeah, you definitely should upgrade now.
I'm gonna upgrade and play. Holy cow.
Yeah. If you go on my website and go to the page where I'll show you it real quick. I am an affiliate for them. And if you have an account, somebody has told me that the new codes that we have now only work if you're a new customer, not just that you're buying a new version, because you couldn't do an upgrade that far back. It only goes back if you have 2 versions. But if you come over to links and discounts, Lumina, where's my Nick? Over here. We have Nick here. And use the code Meredith Images. You can save 20%. and that's good till the end of the year. It says new licenses only. So if you have another email address, if you have
Okay.
two emails, use a different email address. So it's like a new account, and then you can save 20%.
Okay, thanks.
And actually, do we have, no, that's Luminar. I would say I have, different companies I work with, and Luminar is doing a sale starting like tomorrow, but I haven't gotten anything on sales for Nick right now. So that would be your best deal, is to do that. Oh yeah, and I was going to show you too, if you want to check out any of the old webinars, if you go up here to webinars, you can see the Nick one I did. I have one coming up next week, more layers and selections and masking, if you're interested in more of that. Let's see, the last one I just did in July, you could click here and it'll take you right to the YouTube channel. If you want to see a list of all of my webinars, if you click here, you'll get a PDF document. I've done 45 webinars since 2020. And if you want to look for titles, and if you want to look up a specific subject, see what I do, it'll tell you at least which one to look for when you go to the YouTube channel. But the last 3 you can link from here, or you can go right to YouTube channel right here.
Excellent.
Okay, so that's that. Yeah, so again, the website's meredithimages.com if you want to sign up for my blog. If you don't get it, I blog twice a week on Sundays and Wednesdays. On Sundays, I call it the Sunday Sampler, and I give away 3 free textures every week. I've been doing that for over 8 years. And on Wednesday, it's around the web, and I do a list of like articles I find on photography or Photoshop or smartphones, or other freebies that I find online, plus, info on whatever's going on with me, and workshops and webinars. And we do the virtual creative photography conference. Jeffrey was a speaker at one recently. And we do that in February and June. And if you sign up during the first month that registration's open, it's only $39. Plus you get an extra 30 days to watch the replays. It's usually 60 days, but you would get 90 days if you do the extra early bird. It includes speaker notes and a goodie bag with freebies and discounts. We have over $2,500 of door prizes every time. 13 hours of seminars over 2 days with 8 different speakers. And then I do workshops, travel workshops in Tennessee and beyond. We're hoping next year to do our Route 66 workshop again next fall. Next year is the 100th anniversary of Route 66. We go from St. Louis to Needles, California in like 10 days. And we rent a 15-passenger van, so you all ride with us. You don't have to drive it. Dave and I do the driving, and we had a ton of fun. We did it last year and the year before. And then you can check out my other stuff on the website. And you're always free to email me, contact me if you have any questions on anything. I love hearing from everybody. And I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Stop sharing my screen.
That was great.
Thank you. My video back on.
Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, anybody else? Anything?
No?
No? Quiet group. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
they are quiet tonight.
yeah.
Everyone
They're
else
just absorbing it all. Yeah. Well, I hope you all enjoyed it, and I appreciate your having me back again.
Thank you.
And I will see some of you. I know at the Wacko one next
Wacko
month.
Digital Forum
Yes.
next month.
We'll be doing
Not this
smart
month, next
creativity with your smartphones.
Yeah.
So we're showing some of my favorite creative apps, some basic editing with Snapseed, but getting into a lot of the creative stuff too. All right.
Great.
All right. Well,
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. We'll see y'all
Thanks.
soon.
Thanks, Hazel.
All righty. Take care. Have a good night.
Yep. Good night.
Night.
Wow. Okay. That was cool. I know how to put a border around my pictures. That's all I really care about at the moment. All right. Well, I don't want to read to you assuming everybody gets the newsletter. I'm not going to read the newsletter to you. There's Ellen. I'm just amazed at what she does. Unfortunately, she's not here tonight. But a couple things. I did not get my article to her in time with the categories, and I was completely off. I thought she would put the category in for September sharing, but that's not how it works. So for September, I had put my summer. So just share what you did over the summer. We'll look at those next month. We have July pictures that did you get those?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. A couple things coming up. The Renaissance Fair at Old Falls Village Park is September 6th through the 8th. And then 13th through the 14th, they're doing the Ren Fair Pirate Days. And then coming up soon, I can't believe it. I always thought this was a Christmas thing. China Lights are coming up September 12th through November 2nd. So I don't know if we want to look at, what do you want to cover? Wacko news?
Sure. Wacko news. The Wisconsin print circuit is now open. The prints need to be in by November 1st to Mary Dumont. You can find that information on the Wacko website. It was just updated. She moved it from October to November, so you get an extra month to get them in. That's one color print and one black and white print. And all the details and the rules are on the Wacko website. We have the Birds of Prey that Wacko is doing for a program in October 5th, so that's coming up real fast. The early cutoff for the lower rate of $75 a person is September 8th. After that, it goes up to $100 a person, so now's the time to sign up. Again, that's on the Wacko website under programs. They'll have, I think it's 16 birds. It's sort of the usual Birds of Prey that Wacko has done. There'll be groups of birds out every 40 minutes, and then they'll switch to another group.
Jeff, we also had the Brian Hansel program in North Shore of Minnesota, the 24th through the 26th. It's $499, which is a good price for that. I think there's still some openings.
Okay, yeah. And then there's the Wacko competition is now open. We have the 8 standard divisions, and then we have the new division, which is creative altered reality. We're testing that out to be a permanent division. The only thing that will happen is that will not be eligible for best of show at this time. We run 3 tests and see how it goes, and then we decide if we make it permanent or not, and then we'll decide whether it will be eligible for best of show. But it's basically follows the same rules as what the spring competition had for creative altered reality. So you get to actually enter 9 divisions this time instead of just the 8. I forget the deadline for entering, I believe it's October 13th.
October 12th.
12th? 12th. That was close.
You were close.
I'm thinking on how I have it in the uploader, so that's the 13th. Yeah. So get your images in. Heck, it's 6 weeks away for the next competition, and the final choosing of the medals will be, of course, the first weekend in November. I think that's all we have for that. I will also we're looking for images for the PSA Club Showcase. Please send those images to Ken, right, Ken?
Yes.
So we need, God, I can't remember now, 8 images
7.
total that we submit? 10?
7.
I was going to say 7, yeah.
7. Yeah. Not bad off the top of my head. They can be any subject. All the images all parts of the image have to be your own. Boy, I'm not sure how they handle textures and some of that stuff. It goes by PSA rules, so it's a little bit different. But we're looking for 8 images.
It goes under the open rules, Jeff, and I don't think that would allow textures.
No, I don't think it does either. Maybe if it's your own texture, then I think it would. PSA rules have gotten so strict lately, I don't remember what they are. But we need 7 images, so if you can please submit them to Ken. Ken and a couple of people are going to narrow it down to the 7. If we don't get enough images, we're not going to enter, right? So, you know, we've took second place, we've taken first place, and we've taken third place in the last 3 years. So, good thing to do. Let's see, anything else on Wacko? Our website took I think it was an honorable mention. Geez, now I forget. It was first place. We did well in the website competition, so.
Yeah, it was honorable mention.
Honorable mention, thank you. I couldn't remember. I'm doing too many websites. And while I'm looking at it, don't forget your dues are due. Please get them in. You can go online and pay, online on the Falls website. I think that's about it. There really isn't much new going on with PSA.
Except we don't have a newsletter anymore.
Right. No more newsletter.
It's still in
It's all
there.
going to be by email.
Yep. I like that. That's a good thing.
Yep.
So, all right. So I'm hearing.
Going back to Brian Hansel, somebody mentioned, I just came back from his astrophotography class last week. Speaking of your background there, and it was an amazing class. There were 10 of us, and in Grand Marais, Minnesota, and we even had Northern Lights. And I would highly recommend any of his classes.
That must have been his second one, because I had a friend who just did that same one, but she didn't say anything about Northern Lights, and she completely took the wrong lens for night sky. She was just a disaster. But
it was a great class, and they've during the day he does classroom too, so that we edit some of the photos too, which really helps a lot. He's got some amazing presets that he gives you to help really bring out everything, the Milky Way.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I wonder if he sells those.
Yes, he does.
I'll have to go check it out. All right. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, everyone I know who's taken a workshop with him loves the workshop, whatever it is. So I need to go take one.
I'm sorry, spell his last name for me. I'm trying to find it here.
Hansel.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Bryan.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so I've been here about 1 year, but I'm hearing that we have a 50th anniversary this year for the Menomonee Falls Camera Club. And that's kind of a huge thing. Are we doing anything? Are we planning on doing anything at I don't know what we do, but that just seems like a milestone that should be recognized by more than me just saying, hey, happy anniversary.
Yeah, we've been around a long time. Richard Nesbeck, who doesn't come to the Zoom meetings but shows up at our public ones, he's been a member pretty much that whole time. I was there when the club first started 50 years ago, which is scary to think about. I couldn't be a member because I was under 18, but my boss, I worked for Ken Momsen. He's the guy actually that I worked for a couple of years, and then he decided to get out of the photography, that part of the business, and I bought his store, and that's where my camera store came from, was from Ken Momsen. He taught me everything, and then I ended up taking it over. But he's the one that started the camera club along with Bob Tank from the rec department, and we met at what's now North Middle School. At that time it was a high school, and we met both in the cafeteria area and in the community room. Had lots of workshops, did a lot of different things, so
Jeff,
club's been around a long time.
is there a history of the club anywhere that we can?
Yeah, if you go back in our minutes go all the way back to the very first minute that was put out, and it's on the website under our minutes. And if you go back to 1975, it will talk about how they got started and all the different people that were involved in it at the time.
It's
Bill
almost
Reitz was
enough to add to our logo that's being worked on.
I was
Yeah.
just thinking the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, not many clubs make it to 50 years, and it's been a very vibrant club during most of that time. Bill Reitz was one of the original people. That's where we got actually all the minutes from, was Bill had saved every minute up till the time that he passed away. John Mazecki was another one that was with the club for quite a long time, and he passed away I think a year or two ago. Trying to think of some of the other old timers, but we did it. They had held a lot of workshops back then, and you got to remember it was film, so things were a little bit different. They did everything with slide projectors and such. I know the most popular one was when they did belly dancers. They kept holding that one over and over again.
Of course.
But we did a lot of portrait stuff, actually we didn't do as much nature as we do today. More of it was portraits and that, because Ken Momsen was a portrait and wedding photographer, so that's what he knew a lot about. And then we get slideshows from Kodak and different companies. That was back in the days when you could get shows for free from all the different companies. So
That's really cool.
Yeah, look back at the minutes. They're sort of interesting to read. We scanned all of them. I scanned them all and put them in because I didn't want to lose that, but I didn't want to hang on to a box of paper minutes. So we got everything going all the way back to 75. There's hardly any that were missed. And it gives an interesting story of how this club grew. And yeah, it's between Richard Nesbeck and myself, we're probably the two oldest members of the club.
All right, very cool. But I do think talking about putting it with the logo would be a interesting conversation to have.
Yeah. I do got to figure out some way to get that logo done, though.
Yeah. Well, there's that too.
Going on to almost a year.
So
we'll be done by the 75th.
Yeah. Now you have something to say. All right, so the last thing I'll bring up before we look at the pictures from July's President Challenge is the 2026 all-member show is sunset to sunrise. We didn't want to just say night sky because there's so much else that can be photographed at night than just the night sky. So sunset to sunrise is the topic for the member show in June. So get out, start doing cool things, especially in winter when it's dark early. And with that, we have the President's Challenge of Patriotic Red, White, and Blue from July. And Jeff graciously put that together for me because I don't know how.
Not a problem. Other than getting them at this afternoon.
Well, that was the problem, yes.
That was the biggest trick, if anything. But,
yeah.
All right. Okay, let's see if this works. Here you go.
Very cool. Thank you for everyone who participated. Does anyone have any questions?
Is there going to be a list of the new president challenges for this
Yeah,
year?
yep. So Ellen will be getting that out past this one. I don't have it handy. I emailed it to her, but it was too late to put in the newsletter. So she'll be getting that out. So outside of Nick software, does anyone in this club use DxO software?
I'm supposed to be playing with it, but I haven't had a chance to play with it. I'm a DxO affiliate, so
Are you?
I mainly work with Nick, but they have given me free copies of DxO as well.
I might have a couple questions for you. So I came home from South Dakota and had a Milky Way picture, and I was watching a video on how to edit my YouTube or my Milky Way photo. And he did a comparison of denoise between Topaz on one and DxO. And I have on one, and typically I love it. It does a great job with denoise, but it always brings my picture back darker. And the guy doing the presentation even said, yes, it came back darker. And I didn't do well with my exposure, so my picture's already dark. It made it so dark you couldn't even see the tree in the picture. So I went and got the trial of DxO. And I have no clue what I'm doing, but all of a sudden in Lightroom, I just had to go under File, something where all the
file edit in, and you can go to DxO.
I didn't even have to edit in. It said just edit with what you set up, and it just did it right in Lightroom and put the picture in a collection. I didn't even have to exit Lightroom.
Oh,
awesome! And it did a really awesome job.
I hear. I don't know if anybody else uses it. I know there's a couple people in the digital forum that use it, and
I think it's more of it's not just a denoise. I think it's also a full editing.
it's a full processing setup.
Just out of curiosity, Elizabeth, have you tried it compared to the Lightroom denoise now that Lightroom does an AI denoise also?
I have not. I will though.
Okay. Yeah, because Lightroom, Lightroom's really quick now too, and it keeps it in RAW.
Okay.
So it doesn't like create a new copy of your file or anything. It's just like any other slider, and you can like tone it up and down. I just be curious.
Right.
That's all I use, but I just be curious what it's like compared.
I'll give it a try on that picture and see.
Old Lightroom denoise was terrible.
Yes.
But now it's gotten, since they switched over to the AI one, it's been really good.
My issue with the DxO is that they have a version specific to Fuji for the X-Trans sensor, which is great, but for my one Fuji camera, but the other Fuji camera doesn't have the X-Trans. So I'm thinking, do I need both versions then? Because one's for night sky and one's for low light, like nighttime rodeo. I don't want two versions of DxO.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you on that. I've just scratched the surface. I downloaded. I don't even know which version I'm on. I'm already behind on Nick.
Yeah.
Because I just haven't had time to do it. Yeah. So
I'll do a little digging, but first I'm going to try the Lightroom because
try Lightroom. That the noise works pretty well.
Yeah, DxO was not horribly expensive for what it was, and you want it. So I just don't want to have to buy two versions of it.
Yeah.
I'd really like on one to just fix there so it doesn't bring everything back darker. Then you send it over. That would be the optimal. But all right.
So
hopefully.
We still got show and tell.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
You and Ken?
Yeah, me and Ken. Ken, you want to go first?
Yeah, now were you going to play it for me on your computer?
Yeah, I'm going to play it for you.
Okay, so just a brief introduction. I thought I'd do something different, so there are no bird photos or no waterfall photos.
What?
And then I was going to use other kinds of photos, and then I decided just to restrict it to Wisconsin and Michigan and Minnesota and Chicago. So all four areas that are not too far away from, well, North Shore is a little distance, but otherwise they're all from those areas, starting with Illinois, or mostly all Chicago, really.
And you had no music, right, Ken?
No music, yeah. That's it, Jeff.
That's it.
That was a really good mix of pictures, Ken.
Thanks.
The water lily, I loved. For that second split rock one, with all the big waves, do you remember what time of year that was when you took that?
I would guess it was the fall.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I think it probably was. Didn't we both go to that one?
Yeah, that was the one where we were able to walk up on the island.
Up to the island, yeah. Yeah, you can't do that these days. That bridge is underwater now.
The Milwaukee Ballet, was that a rehearsal or a performance or?
A few years ago, they used to do what's called Milwaukee Beats. And they gave a show at the Peck Center. And it was, I think it was their younger ballet performers. So that was outside at the Peck.
All right, well, there's no more questions for Ken. All of mine are flowers for a change. Ken and I went to a number of places, and then I've shot some stuff at the park that I work at now. I'm going to keep the volume of the music sort of down, but I do have music in this, and I can talk over it a little bit. We'll see how this works. Beginning flowers are at Old Falls Village Park. We have really great flower master gardeners that put together all sorts of great flower beds. So you don't have to go far if you want to get flowers. Pretty wide variety of stuff. Plus we have a bunch of historical buildings there. And I have a place out near Lowell's Lake where I can get a lot of great milkweed shots and different flower shots. And Ken and I had gone to Chicago Botanical Gardens and got a bunch of water lilies. And of course, Wacko had their sunflower shoot over in Lannon. So I got a bunch of sunflower shots. And they have a bunch of other flowers there. So it's a great spot to go. They still have sunflowers and their other flowers are still going good. So it's only costs $20 a carload to get in and you get to pick, I don't know how many sunflowers, but it's a great place to go and shoot sunflowers and regular flowers. Although you do have to like bees.
Well done. Do they have short sunflowers there for the short people?
Yeah, a lot of them are bent over because of the storms and that, so they're all somewhat leaning. But the other would be that you could pick your, what is it, 12, Ken? Sunflowers? They can pick 12 sunflowers, right?
Yes.
So you could cut off 12 and get them to whatever level you need.
True. That is true.
Jeff, when were you guys at the Botanic Garden?
Friday and Saturday.
Yeah, a month ago for
a month ago.
No, a month ago for the Chicago Botanical Gardens.
For all the water lilies?
Yeah, we were too early for the lotus blossoms.
Yeah, we missed that.
Yeah, I was just there teaching at the Out of Chicago conference, and even then there weren't a ton of lotus flowers. And the dahlias still haven't really bloomed yet. We had lots of other things that are beautiful, but the dahlias are taking their sweet time.
What kind of focal length were you using for those?
Well, let's see. At Chicago Botanical Gardens, I was using 100 to 400.
Long one.
Yeah, a lot of long lenses. At the Sunflower, I was using a 24 to 120.
Yeah.
You can get fairly close to that stuff. And the same as the at the Old Falls Village Park. It's just a 24 to 120.
And the water lilies, you should just bring the longest lens you have. I shoot with a 525 equivalent because it's on my crop body.
So are they done now? What is the
water lilies? Water lilies are still out there. They're gorgeous right now.
Interesting.
Now's an excellent time to go to Chicago Botanic Garden because the dahlias are probably opening and the water lilies are still in bloom. Zinnias are everywhere.
Where were the dahlias, Ian?
Well, they're like I said, there were hardly any in bloom when I was there. But the vast majority of them will be in the bulb garden. So if you enter, you go straight through the bridge just as you come through the welcome center. You basically just keep going straight and hug the coast of the pond or whatever. It takes you back to the bulb garden where because there's also more water lilies back there too.
Okay. We didn't
next to the vegetable garden. The vegetable garden is back there too.
Okay.
But yeah, they had buds everywhere. They just haven't bloomed yet. And the lady I know up here who grows dahlias said the same thing, that her dahlias are behind this year.
Okay.
Jeff, on both of your slideshows with music at this end, it ended up very soft and gloppy.
Huh. That's interesting. I'm not sure
Elizabeth,
why.
you asked about the water lilies, how they're looking right now. This one was from last week, so they look like that.
Dang it, I need to go.
Bring a polarizer too. Long lens polarizer.
I'll have to figure out that song.
See if I can get there. I should have gone. My boss, our CEO, decided to close the company last Friday so we could have a 4-day weekend because, you know, the next 4 months are going to be hell. But I should have gone on Friday when I was off instead of just sitting at home.
Yeah, they're from Saturday, not this last Saturday, but the Saturday before till Thursday. And I got to shoot a bunch on Saturday and Sunday. Oh, and if you do go, make sure you also check out the Desert Botanic greenhouse because the cactus, I mean, every day was different whether they were in bloom or not. But a bunch of them had buds and were blooming.
wow.
Who knows what they're doing now? They may all be done, but like they would bloom and then the next day it would be wilted and gone. So we were just checking like every day, and it bloomed the first day and the last day that I was there. It was pretty cool.
Can you use a tripod?
Yeah, you can use a tripod anywhere in the garden. Just don't put the feet anywhere in the beds.
Right.
Yeah.
But I thought it's been so long since I've been there.
The orchid show, you can't use tripods unless you go during the photographer time.
Yeah.
But besides that, you can use tripods anywhere.
Yeah. Maybe I'll have to go this weekend.
I would go. It's a good time.
Okay.
Gonna say anybody that goes to Renaissance Fair, if they're are willing to send me pictures of it, all you have to do at admissions is just say you're part of the media, and they'll let you in for free.
Nice.
Because I'm always looking for photos for both Renaissance Fair and for Renaissance Pirate Fest. Because I don't get to shoot any photos while I'm there.
Pirate Fest sounds fun.
Yeah, it should be really interesting. We have jousting this weekend, so we got a lot of good activities. Aerial dancer, jousting, sword fighting, everything, a lot of what you'd see at regular Bristol Renaissance Fair, but at only $10 a head for most people, and in a lot smaller area to walk around in. So it should be real interesting.
Excellent. Does anyone have anything else? Anything to share?
I think next month we have Ian Plant talking to this group.
If you've never seen him, he's really good.
Yeah, I love Plant.
I bought I don't shoot much ultra wide these days, but I bought an ultra wide halfway through his presentation once.
Yep.
There's like a break, and I found one on eBay and I bought it.
When we had him here for Wacko, that's what started the love of wide angle.
Yep, that's when I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be good. November we'll be doing the image where we're going to pick 8 people, and then we'll supply an image for everybody to work. We'll do that. We'll pick the people next month after Ian's done. For Digital Forum, just to let everybody know, September I have Ian Plant again talking about landscape photography. And October, Hazel Meredith, creativity with your smartphone. And in November, I have Phil Itea talking about 4 different ways of processing an image. So.
And you have Ian doing a different program for Menomonee
Right.
Falls.
I can't remember what the name was for
but they were 2
Menomonee
different
Falls
ones.
one. But they are different talks, yeah. He was available for both talks in October, so I didn't really want to do it that way, but that's how it worked out.
Wait, is he September for Digital Forum?
Yeah, he's in September.
Okay. be home for that one. All right. If there's nothing else, we can adjourn. Everyone have a great month.